Good morning. It's DeProgram with Ted Rall and John Kiriakou. It's Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. It's Election Day in New York City, New Jersey, and across the nation. And we are looking forward to seeing those results. John, good to see you.
Good to see you, Ted. It's Election Day here in Virginia as well.
Excellent. So lots to talk about. You know, John, this morning when I woke up, I kind of noticed that the sun was a little brighter.
Yes.
I noticed that the birds were singing more beautifully than ever.
Yes, and there was automatically an extra spring in my step.
My cat's fur was glistening, almost sparkling. I just felt like probably my bank account increased a little bit. It's just everything just seemed brighter. And then I woke up to the news that the Dark Lord had passed on to whatever horrible dimension he resides in. Dick Cheney, of course, is dead, former vice president, and we'll get into, his legacy. I'm sure you, of all people, have thoughts. I have many thoughts. The Bush years were very formative for both of us. So we're going to talk about Dick Cheney. We'll talk about Israel's very, as I called it, very wrong scandal. So you can identify with this. A top army lawyer ratted out the IDF for sticking a knife up a Palestinian's ass and sodomizing him. That got caught on video.
Yeah.
She leaked it. She leaked it because nothing was going to happen to the rapists and basically attempted murderers.
Yes.
And so they decided to do the right thing and put her in prison. Okay. Instead of giving her a promotion.
Welcome
and a raise.
to the wonderful world of whistleblowing.
Indeed. We have so much in common with Israel that way. Chaos at the Heritage Foundation over Tucker Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes. Africa continues to blow up. I'm proud of our show for talking about Africa, as much as it deserves. Maybe not enough, but now it's Tanzania. Things are pretty crazy over there. We'll try to break that down for you. I just want to say I came up with the AI-generated thumbnail for the Dick Cheney thing. I just want to be clear that the idea that he's in heaven with like the angel was meant to be a sarcastic joke.
When I saw that, I was like, should I call Ted this morning? No, he probably did it on purpose for some reason.
I just thought it would be funny as shit because I didn't want to go with the obvious, like he's turning crispy brown by now.
Well, I wanted to say something too. There's a quote that is attributed to Mark Twain. It is attributed incorrectly to Mark Twain. People believe that Mark Twain said, "I've never wished a man dead, but I have read some obituaries with great pleasure."
Yes.
Clarence Darrow actually said it.
Oh, that's great.
And he should get credit for it. But that was literally the first thought in my head when I rolled over this morning to see what the push notification was on my phone. And it said that Dick Cheney was dead. Like you've said, Ted, we all have thoughts about Dick Cheney. I've been in meetings with Dick Cheney in which I have feared for my safety.
Wow.
Because he would lose his shit like a crazy person in these meetings. And then he would get up and storm out. And then everybody would be like, okay, well, back to work. And then they would get up like it was normal to treat people like that.
Wow.
And when it came to, let's enumerate them. The assassination program, the torture program, the rendition program, the secret prison program, literally all of it was Dick Cheney. All of it. It was all his idea, and they were all implemented by people who were close to him. That's his legacy in this country. His legacy is the stripping of the Constitution, ignoring of human rights, and making our country weaker while pretending that he was making it stronger.
Yeah, I mean, he's the hatchet man of neoconservatism, right?
Yes.
He's not a neoconservative theorist like people who signed the original Project for a New American Century letter, like a John Keegan type person. He's more, he's the guy who really made it happen. He had this idea, literally as within hours of the attack on 9/11, he was approaching people in the White House saying like, okay, we're going to invade Iraq now.
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
are confused, right? They're like, Iraq?
That's right.
What did they have to do with this? What could they have had to do with this?
Nothing. Literally.
I mean, Saddam Hussein and Iraq hated Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
Al-Qaeda wanted to overthrow them.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
So, I mean, so he was the biggest architect of the lies. I mean, him and Donald Rumsfeld, the lie machine. Donald Rumsfeld had my favorite lies. And there were so many to choose from. My favorite one was, we know exactly where the WMDs are. They are north, east, south, or west of Baghdad somewhat. You can look it up.
It's funny. Rumsfeld, Cheney was an intern in Rumsfeld's office when Rumsfeld was a congressman. That's how they met. Rumsfeld was a congressman, I think, from Illinois. And Cheney really, really, really wanted to go to Washington. He was from Wyoming. He had 3 DUIs in his past, couldn't find a job, but really loved Rumsfeld. So he applied for this internship, and he got this entry-level internship in Rumsfeld's office, and Rumsfeld really took to him. And then when Rumsfeld became Secretary of Defense for the first time, Cheney was in his first term in Congress. This was during the Ford administration. And Rumsfeld recommended to Ford, hey, you should hire Cheney as your chief of staff. He's a real tough son of a bitch. And so Cheney became Gerald Ford's chief of staff, set himself apart in conservative circles once Ford lost to Carter, and then came roaring back with Reagan and Bush, and the rest is history.
That is, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? The origin story of the Bushies really goes back to the Ford administration, where all of those people came together. I mean, I guess they didn't have much to do because for people who don't know, like Jerry Ford was probably, he dealt with a 1974 huge Democratic sweep. And so basically Congress wouldn't pass anything that he proposed, and he vetoed everything that Congress,
everything. In fact, they called him President Veto.
Yeah, nothing happened. I mean,
No.
Basically he was basically widely known for the pardon and for whip inflation now buttons.
Yeah, I still have mine.
I still have mine too. So question that came up from FUSO, and I'm glad that he brought this up because he said, thanks for the donation, by the way. Under number of years till Cheney is whitewashed as a good guy. I think it's 0. I think we're there right now. I mean, already the media is whitewashing him as like, he was pro-gay. He came out in favor of his daughter.
Eventually, only because it split his family.
Right.
Not because he had any love of gays.
Not at all. Right. He was very, very right wing in all the worst ways. And, he liked to fly fish. Who gives a shit that he liked to fly fish? But they're trying to humanize this bastard. And he was just, I thought there's so many things to say about Dick Cheney, all of them mostly bad. My favorite was that Bush basically picked him as the head of his vice presidential running mate search committee because he wanted someone, he's like, he didn't really know who to choose. And so Cheney finally was like, well, I looked around and I'm thinking me. And that's literally how he was the head of, he picked himself.
Yeah, he did.
So,
yeah, he did. And there's
what kind of man?
In the movie Vice, there's a scene where Bush is asking him to be vice president, where Cheney made it look like it was Bush's decision. So he said, well, I would want to be in charge of foreign affairs, defense policy. Bush says, done. Energy policy, trade, done. Tax policy, the environment, done. And then he's like, okay, then we have an agreement.
And also he wanted like really frequent meetings, right?
That's another thing. It's rather unusual for the president and vice president to meet more often than once a week. Usually they'll have breakfast together on a Tuesday and then go over what the rest of the week is looking like. Cheney and Bush met every single day in the Oval Office for the president's daily brief. And then Cheney essentially would tell Bush, this is what is happening in foreign policy. This is what's happening at DOD. You know, Cheney was obviously clearly the president.
I think anyone who lived through that period has to agree with that. I guess, I want to be fair here. To what extent was Bush responsible? I mean, was Bush a dupe, or was he just lazy, or is it something else that happened in this dynamic?
I hate to say it, but in my own personal experience, and I saw them interacting with each other, and I mean, my positions at the CIA at the time. I had access to these guys all the time. Bush was a dum-dum. I hate to say it, but there's no other way to say it. He was just an idiot. He was like the village idiot who somehow found himself in charge of the village. And so Cheney knew that. Cheney took advantage of it, and Cheney put himself in charge and made it look like Bush was in charge.
It's really kind of insane. And, and then he talked the American people. Well, I mean, a lot of them talked to the American people, right? I mean, they all had their roles, right? Colin Powell closed the deal with that speech in front of the United Nations with the fake vial.
Absolutely right.
I've always thought, my fantasy, John, was that in the Hollywood version of that, and I bet Colin Powell had this dream at least once before he died. He starts to give the speech. They told him, go up there and do it. He knew it was all bullshit at the time. It was reported that he spent the weekend really angry and frustrated when he read over all the evidence, and he was like, there's nothing here. And at one point he threw it all up. I don't remember if it was Time or Newsweek. One of them reported that he threw everything up in the air and said, this is all bullshit. But he went out there and did it anyway because...
When Cyrus Vance was Secretary of State and the president told him to say something he didn't believe in, Cyrus Vance resigned. Colin Powell should have resigned.
And he could have done it at the UN. What if he had gone to the UN and just said, they sent me out here to lie to the American people and to the people of the world, and I will not do it. He would have been president in 2004.
He would have been president. Larry Wilkerson is a friend of many of ours, right? And Larry was Colin Powell's best friend and his chief of staff when he was the Secretary of State. They came up through the military together. They served for years together in the military. And then when Ronald Reagan was president, Colin Powell went from lieutenant colonel to 4-star general in 4 years. Like George Washington didn't get promoted that quickly. But Reagan took to Colin Powell and made Colin Powell somebody. And Larry will tell you that in their private moments together, Colin Powell would admit that he was in over his head. He shouldn't have been promoted so quickly, and that he was weak when it came to the weapons of mass destruction debate. Colin Powell said to Larry at the time, and said in his memoirs years later, that he should have resigned, that he ruined his reputation by going along with what Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld wanted him to say. Yeah. And it was the gravest mistake of his life.
I think that was in his character. I think, frankly, John, that was baked into his character.
Of course it was.
Because he was the PR flack who was put in charge to go out and sell bullshit about the My Lai massacre during the Vietnam War.
That's right.
And go out and tell the press a line of shit about like, nothing happened, nothing to see here.
This is why I have always said that I don't think military officers, especially generals, should have cabinet level positions anywhere. Because how did they make 4 stars? They made it by saying, yes, sir, for 30 or 35 years. And what you need in positions like that is someone who has the guts to stand up and say, Mr. President, that is a terrible idea. Let me explain to you why. And that was not Colin Powell.
No, it wasn't. John, we've got an ad, so I'm going to go ahead and read that.
Okay.
All right, outdoor crew, if you're into fishing, camping, or getting off the grid, meet your new best friend, the Hunter Orange 25 quart cooler from Caddis Sports. This isn't your average cooler. It's roto-molded for max durability, bear-proof, and 20% lighter than other brands. So it's easier to haul, whether you're deep in the backcountry or just setting up at the dock. You'll get up to 3 days of ice retention, thanks to thick, high-performance insulation. That means cold drinks, fresh food, and fewer ice runs. Whether you're chasing muttons offshore or posted up at a campsite, best part, it's 40 to 50% cheaper than the big-name coolers, but still built to perform season after season. And like all Caddis Sports name-brand gear, it's proudly made in the USA. Use code RUMBLE at checkout for 10% off your order today. That's Caddis, Caddis, sports.com. Go grab the Hunter Orange 25Q cooler and keep your next adventure ice cold.
You know, I was very proud last night, Ted. Two friends of mine and I released episode 3 of a podcast I have on Apple Podcasts called Dead Drop, What Makes a Spy Tick. So we dropped our 3rd episode, and knock on wood, I've been so fortunate that last night, much to my shock, when I listened to it, it says, Dead Drop, What Makes a Spy Tick, brought to you by Progressive Insurance. And I was like, what? Progressive Insurance? So I called one of my colleagues who's the producer. I said, hey, what did we make now that we're endorsed by Progressive Insurance? He said, let me look it up. So we looked it up. $22, buddy.
Excellent. All right. Well, $22. It's like, look, what would you do? Would you? The way you have to look at it is, if you saw $22 lying on the ground, would you pick it up?
Sure.
Fuck yeah. And you'd be very happy to.
I have to split it 3 ways, but that's $7.33 I didn't have yesterday.
That's how you have to look at it. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. So for people who are regular viewers, you know that our producer, Robbie West, who was doxxed out of his current job and basically will be out of that work in 2 weeks. He is going to be rejoining the show here, and that's the good news. But the bad news, or maybe it's the good news, is that you have the opportunity, as NPR would say, to help contribute to making this show viable by making his tenure as producer viable for us. Please, we basically need, for this to work, to keep Robbie going month after month, we need $1,000 a month from him. That means we need $1,000 a month from you guys. John and I are each paying $250, just so full transparency here. So it's not like we're asking you for stuff that we're not willing to contribute. And we're both broke as shit. But we're paying $250 a month. So if you guys can do, we're each doing $250. If you guys can do $1,000, that'd be awesome. Please go to givesendgo.com/West Glacier Gaming. Again, that's GiveSendGo, not the other one. GiveSendGo.com/West Glacier Gaming, and throw some money Robbie's way. We will keep doing this until we get to the $1,000 for November. Then we'll shut the fuck up until December. So basically, that is our pledge to you. So if someone goes in and sends in $1,000 right now, the whole thing's over. So you know who you are. You people are. We have some rich viewers. So whatever. Is it worth, before we move on from Dick Cheney? I think it's impossible to overstate his legacy, right? Well, let's talk about Trump a little bit. What's Trump's view of Bush and Cheney? I mean, Trump. He's a little bit revisionist about this. He came to opposing the Iraq War sort of after, but before a lot of other Republicans, and he remarkably ran against the Iraq War in as a Republican primary candidate in 2016. Is Donald Trump going to order flags placed at half staff? Is he going to have a big to-do, body and state at the Capitol? Is he going to make a big to-do about it, or is he going to basically do what Cheney deserves and have his body thrown into a dumpster?
I have no inside information, of course, like you have no inside information. But my guess is, in order to try to shore up the neocon wing of the Republican Party, the answer is probably yes. He'll probably do a lot of those things. We have not had a vice president lay in state in the Capitol since Hubert Humphrey. Hubert Humphrey died in 1978. Mm-hmm. So it's been a long time. I would be afraid, frankly, that if he were lying in state, no one would show up. I'm serious.
People might come by just to make sure he's dead.
Yes, just jab him with a fork to make sure he's dead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it could be. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. Do people come to pay their respects, really to pay their respects, or do they come out of idle curiosity, or both?
I think most of them come out of curiosity. I've been to a bunch, but never out of curiosity, only out of respect. I went to Claude Pepper, for example. But there were others that I skipped. I skipped Ronald Reagan. I loathed Ronald Reagan. I felt like I would be hypocritical if I went to stand in line and walk past you just walk past a closed casket with a flag over it. It's a big deal. What do you see?
Yeah, nothing. It's just a
nothing.
box.
Yeah. I went to Jimmy Carter. I had a lot of respect for Jimmy Carter, even though he refused to write a letter of support for my pardon application. I went back and forth with his chief of staff a half a dozen times. My lawyers are writing, and they're like, nah, he doesn't want to do this.
I don't even understand that, right? Like, it's sort of like, if you have I would be a pardon whore. If
I would too. I would too.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, why not? Like, why not like throw people a bone? Like when people ask me for a book blurb, I used to be a book blurb whore. People ask me all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, if I can help you sell your book, unless it's something I really despise, sure.
Yeah. I never say no to book blurbs. I've written a dozen of them, I guess. Happy to do it.
Yeah, totally.
And I've written 3 or 4 forewords and afterwords and stuff for other people's books. Happy to do it. When my inclination, whenever somebody asks me for something, even people I don't even know, my inclination is to say yes. Because you never know, you're spreading goodwill. Maybe it'll come back to you.
Phil is asking if are we both doxxed? Pretty lame thing to do to a person. I would say I have not been, I don't want to give anyone any ideas. I would say I have not been, I get death threats.
I get death threats. I got a half a dozen of them last week. That was an unusual week though. But I haven't been doxxed, but I get death threats with some regularity.
I don't think doxing would do anyone any good, since I don't work for any mainstream organizations that would get pissed off at me or fire me or anything like that. My syndicate, they to quote Jonathan Richman, they know who I am. They've been dealing with me with my annoying ass since 1996.
See,
so I'm go ahead, dox away. Nothing's going to happen there.
Same here.
Let's see. FU still wants to know what bands are lined up to perform at Robbie Aid. I don't know. Probably, I would imagine some right-wing bands, not the Dixie Kid Chicks. Maybe aren't they just called the Chicks now? Something.
Yes, they're the Chicks because it's, I guess, racist to say Dixie.
Oh well, this is funny. Rebellious Rainbow Unicorn. Nice to see you. Said we should write and publish Darth Cheney's real obituary and publish it. Now I'm looking forward to seeing what the New York Times has got going. I think they'll probably do a good job. Their obituaries are legend.
The New York Times always has the best obituaries. The Post's obituary today was generally factual, slightly on the pro-Cheney side.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that's crazy. I don't even know how you can do that. I mean, his approval rating when he died was 9% or something like that.
See,
he and Eric Adams.
Yeah, both of them couldn't get elected
for the donation, Phil Chats,
in their own households.
Phil Chats just gave us $5. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would like our thoughts on Frog Shack Gamers wants to know. Would like your thoughts on Meshtastic and if private decentralized communication networks are the future to combat invasion of privacy.
I'm only peripherally aware of these issues, but we should have Sean O'Brien on. He could walk us through it step by step.
Let's do that. Okay.
Yeah.
We will do that. FUSO, thank you for the buck. In case Cheney in the new Trump White House ballroom coat rack or something. Yeah, maybe like a bear attacking.
Yeah.
Throw your coat on top there. Yeah, that's that. I could handle that. Here we go. Rizwan Hassan, 9757. Do I have to make an account on Rumble for us to benefit from watching videos on Rumble?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think just so long as you watch it, that's what counts.
Yeah, watch hours are king. We're going to find out a little more about the the metrics here. Oh, Katie, catastrophe too. People can never believe this is true, right? Oh, that there's ChatGPT still has no record of me. Google says it's because of your controversial LA newspaper stuff. Yeah, that's not why. It's because of an article that I wrote in the Wall Street Journal making fun of OpenAI and Sam Altman.
Yes, without a doubt. Yes,
because that's when it happened. I mean, LA Times thing. I was all over ChatGPT, and years after the LA Times thing was all over. Have we seen? Born to Battery wants to know: have we seen the SNL White House improvement skit? No. I've had a lot going on, but I need to catch up on that. SNL to me is it's a shitty show. I mean, I just got to say, and it's always been a shitty show, but there's always like one skit that you should kind of watch. Yeah. It's never that good. No, but it'll have moments. I can't believe this shitty show's been running for 50 years. Like,
on the plane the other day, I was flying back from somewhere, Mexico, I guess. I was flying back from Mexico, and I'm going through the entertainment on the back of the seat, and there was something about needs more cowbell. The famous skit with Christopher Walken, needs more cowbell. Here's how desperate Saturday Night Live has become. It was an hour-long documentary on the skit.
What?
Needs more cowbell.
Ridiculous.
That's how desperate they are. And then the people that they're interviewing were like, "Oh, yeah. You're saying you're making a documentary just on the skit?"
And yeah, it's not like that documentary they made on that The Aristocrats, about the joke.
No, that's right. The joke. Right, the worst joke in the world, or
the Aristocrats,
the dirtiest joke in the world. Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand. SNL makes me actually crazy. It's literally like, is there something wrong with me that like I'm just stone cold, like just not laughing while I'm watching this? And what is it that everyone else sees that I don't see? And it makes me crazy. Toward that end, like a few months ago, I went back and I started watching SNL starting with season 1, episode 1. And it's kind of like, okay, it was better then, but it wasn't that great. No, really,
no.
And it's all been
right.
downhill.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. It was better then, but it was never really great. Like you say, you can pull out individual hilarious skits and put them together in a best of DVD. But
now, Carol Burnett's show was fucking
hilarious.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and consistently.
Yes.
I mean, even in Living Color, that had a lot of good shit.
A lot. And made people giant stars.
Laughing. A lot of funny shit.
Classic. Yeah.
So, I mean, we can do humor. SNL just doesn't.
Smothers Brothers even. Yeah.
I just can't. And it's like, it's horrible. Anyway, hell, someone should just do skits making fun of SNL. All right, we got a half hour left here on our show. I love how fast it goes, but then I hate how fast it goes. So what do you want to talk about? Heritage Foundation, Israel, or Tanzania?
Let's talk about the Heritage Foundation. There's a real split right now in the Heritage Foundation that appears to have been caused by Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, I've said it a million times. He's a friend of mine, and he said something to me the other day that made me very happy for him. He feels utterly unencumbered by anything or anybody. He's rich. He's famous. He doesn't work for anyone.
He controls his own destiny.
Controls his own destiny. He's got the Tucker Carlson Network. He can say whatever the fuck he wants to say. And people don't like that. And at the Heritage Foundation, they don't like it because he had Nick Fuentes on the other day. Now, me personally, I wouldn't have had Nick Fuentes on, but that's just me. I don't know what I'd want to say to the guy. He's only like 25 years old.
Yeah.
He became a household name because of his racism.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really have anything to say to him. But Tucker had him on. And in the course of the conversation, they kind of pulled the Heritage Foundation in. And it's gotten ugly the last couple of days.
Well, so so it's strange, right? So the Heritage Foundation is a right-wing think tank, most notably recently for Project 2025.
Yeah,
But
it's the best funded right-wing think tank in America.
it also it's what Obamacare came out of, right? Obamacare, Heritage came up with Romney Care, which became the Affordable Care Act.
That's right.
But it was like sort of like above, it used to be above, or it seemed to be above the GOP fray. It was like conservative rather than Republican.
That's correct.
Now it's Republican.
Yes.
And that seems to have been a mistake. I bet
the same thing happened at Liberty University, where they were very proud to say that they would turn out conservative Christians. And now they say that they're proud to turn out Republican Christians.
That's always a mistake. Same thing with like when there's there's far fewer similar organizations on the left among liberals, but when they just become democratic organs. I mean, I feel like that happened to like The Nation became democratic as opposed to
very much so
progressive.
That's exactly right.
And once that happens, you're fucking done. All right, so what exactly is this about, right? So basically, Tucker interviews Nick Fuentes. So fucking what? I mean, okay, I understand why people would get upset, particularly liberals.
Yeah.
I interviewed when I had my radio show in LA at KFI. I interviewed David Duke for 3 hours. It was supposed to be an hour, and it was going so great with lots of calls. I was just like, keep going. It was a fantastic 3 hour. Great. I mean, you don't really know much about David Duke. If you listened to those 3 hours, though, you definitely understood why he actually really was dangerous, because he was so charismatic, so funny, so intelligent.
Yeah. Very smart.
Very dangerous guy, good looking too, and fun. And I liked him. That's a funny. I mean, I hated everything he had to say, but I liked him. So I mean, isn't that just what's Tucker guilty of? Doing journalism? I mean, right. I like you, I wouldn't have interviewed Nick Fuentes because I don't really think there's much to learn about this little pipsqueak.
No, I agree. And we have a question from Craig D. Vance, who says, honestly, why do you guys support Carlson after all the stuff he did on Fox? Honestly asking. For me personally, he has consistently been one of my strongest supporters from the very beginning, from my arrest. And just secondarily, he was one of the first Republicans to really call the Israelis out on human rights abuses in Gaza and the West Bank. And I had respect for that. Plus, he's a very sweet guy. You don't have to agree with everything. I actually disagree with most things. That's something that he said on his show. He said, you and I probably disagree on 90% of the issues, but he said, I like you and we're friends. That's how I feel about him.
Now, I've never met Tucker Carlson. I've never been on his show. Would love to be. But the thing is that he's, I've watched him for years. And, I used to find his bow tie shtick really annoying. Generally, people with bow ties, it's like, why are you wearing a bow tie? My best friend, Scott's dentist, when I met him, he used to wear bow ties. I was like, why the fuck are you wearing bow ties? But that said, it's just the same thing. Look, he strikes me as a guy who has integrity, which is to say, not that he's always right, but that he is trying to find out what the truth is within, the limits of, we all have our limits of politics and personality and so on. And that's, to me, that's all I can ever ask. And he's one of the rare media personalities who ever admits when he's mistaken. So, so I wouldn't say I support him, but I would be like, I respect him, which is more important.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why conservatives are afraid of him right now is because he is way more powerful in media than he ever was at Fox. And because he's given the Israelis shit and the Israelis aren't sure how to react to it.
And Lord knows they fucking deserve it.
Yeah.
Oscello has a question for us. I don't know. He wants to know our thoughts on Zoran Mamdani. The election's today. He's going to be the mayor of the city of New York. He's going to be a boy mayor, 34 years old. He's about to defeat Andrew Cuomo, who's 67 years old. and the former governor, 3-term governor of the state, political lion, that's pretty much, I think, going to mark the end of Cuomo's political career. I mean, I could see, by the way, if there were a Democratic president in the future, I could see Cuomo ending up on the cabinet easily.
Sure. I could see Cuomo ending up in a Republican cabinet.
I could see that too. Oh, by the way, Donald Trump just endorsed Cuomo.
I saw that yesterday afternoon.
By the way, that's the death of him.
Kiss of death. Done.
Yeah.
He's done.
That's just 5 points just of his 25 just evaporated.
And Curtis Lee was like, fuck you, Trump.
Yeah. That's disgusting. What did Curtis Lee do to deserve that?
Yeah.
Curtis Lee is the Republican
nominee.
Fuck Donald Trump. That's so fucking wrong. But I bet Cuomo's even thinking fuck Donald Trump. Because it's also one of those things, like, if it was going to do any good, it might have done more good months ago.
That's right.
I think Mamdani is a promising young man. He's definitely in over his head. He's 34 years old. Hopefully he'll surround himself with some smart and good people. I think he seems smart enough to know what he doesn't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. And, one of the things that has been largely ignored about Mamdani is that he has surrounded himself with very smart people, many of whom, and this is something the media, I think, are purposely ignoring, many of whom happen to be Jewish. And so this nonsense that he's an anti-Semite, I think is not working. I saw a clip yesterday from one of the early mayoral debates where there were like 6 candidates. And the question was, where will your first, when you're elected mayor, where will your first foreign trip be? And they were like, Israel, 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 Israel. And Mamdani said, I am happy to meet with Jewish voters in all of the 5 boroughs. My job would be to be as mayor of New York, not to enact a foreign policy like I'm Secretary of State. If constituents happen to be Jewish, I'm happy to meet with them. If they happen to be Muslim or happen to be Christian, I'm happy to meet with them. Their religion makes no difference to me. And then they start screaming, with Cuomo being the loudest, that's anti-Semitic. You don't support Israel. Screaming. It's like, no, that's not at all what he said. He's going to be mayor of New York. He's not going to be Secretary of State. No. So who cares where his first trip is going to be?
Well, and who kind of gets to decide this is New York's high Jewish population.
Exactly.
Right? And guess what? New York's high Jewish population overwhelmingly supports Mamdani.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
they do.
In fact, who else in the Jewish population of the United States is opposed to Israel and pro-Palestinian now? Game
That's
over,
right.
Israel. You guys
That's
are finished. You're done.
That is right.
So, all right. So do we want to move on past it? So let's talk about Israel. It seems like a good place to transition here.
Yeah.
So Major General Yafat Tomer-Yerushalmi is a top army lawyer. I guess, would you say that she was a JAG, kind of like a top JAG equivalent? So she basically came across she had access to the surveillance tape that showed IDF soldiers at this notorious torture facility. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's today Teman.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they were sodomizing a Palestinian prisoner with a knife. Not shockingly, he was severely injured and had to go through numerous surgeries. He got rectal perforation, and they fractured his ribs. He's lucky to be alive.
Yeah, he's lucky to be alive.
And anyway, so shockingly and strangely, rather than having a grateful nation thank her and say, well, thank you for revealing this. She sent this to the media because obviously nothing was happening internally. Most of the country, which has gone so far right wing that it's crazy, they're pissed at her, and they want her to stay in prison. Another former prosecutor, Matan Solomesh, also is in prison for related charges. So and then Netanyahu's allies are saying things like, now we can resume the lynch. In other words, they want to, there was some thought that she might have committed suicide. She kind of like vanished, and she went off to the beach, and that whole episode sort of feels like, being on the Appalachian Trail, if you remember that episode. But who knows what was going on here? Look, the stress can absolutely make you contemplate suicide. You and I have talked about that, and we've both been there. So basically, I don't know. I mean, you're a whistleblower.
Ted,
go ahead.
When I blew the whistle, it was in December of 2007, and I was unprepared for the media storm that ensued. I gave an interview to NPR. I was in a hotel room in Dallas, I remember, because my boss had summoned me there to fire me. I was at Deloitte & Touche. I ended up suing them, and I won. But he summoned me to Dallas to fire me. And before I went into the office, knowing this was going to be a bad day, I gave this interview to NPR. And Senator Roy Blunt was the other guest on the show. He was, at the time, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And he said, just straight out, I want to see you hang from a tree. And I thought, oh my God, this is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. And he's calling for me to be executed or lynched. I mean, at least if you're executed, you get a trial, right? And I thought, this is going to be way worse than I thought it was. And so I can understand what she's going through right now. You speak the truth because you believe that the American people, or in the case of this woman, the Israeli people, deserve the truth, right? You see your role as a whistleblower as one of keeping the government honest, and then the response is to call for your death. So I know exactly what she's going through. This is going to be a very difficult road. And it's going to be, it's going to be years. It may be forever before they appreciate what it is that she did. I appreciate what it is that she did, but she's in for a real shitstorm.
John, I've always wanted to ask you this question, and I'm glad this comes up now. When you know that like there's going to be this big shit show, and it's going to big media shitstorm around you, and it's going to be basically it's going to come down to people who are going to say, "Good for John Kiriakou for exposing torture. Thank God for him," versus people who are like, "Fuck him. He betrayed his oath. What matters is we got to protect the secrets of the U.S. government." You're kind of placing a bet, right, on that a sizable majority, or maybe at least a good plurality of the American people are good people, that they're going to see the obvious moral choice here, of which what's right, what's more important is being opposed to torture and stopping torture. That's more important than safeguarding government secrets that are basically secrets involving the fact that you're torturing. Were you ever disappointed that the American people didn't respond more? Or I always think like Ed Snowden, he said that he was trying to start this national conversation about privacy and NSA surveillance, and he wanted to give the American people a chance to raise hell and put pressure Congress and put a stop to it. Obviously, the American people fell down on the job and did not do that. And we are worse off than we were in 2013 when he did that. LA Times, I was not disappointed. The people of Los Angeles came to my support, and I mean, canceled their subscriptions, and they were pissed, and they're like that. The people of LA, I'm so grateful to them.
That's awesome.
How did you feel about? I mean, how did it go? Like, did you feel like, okay, it's kind of like up to the public now? How do you feel like they did? If you had to give them a grade,
I would give them a D. I really would. Now it's great. Now it's an A- or a B+. It'll be an A when I get a pardon. But But no, in the beginning, it's like the whole government fell on my head, and I couldn't get out from under it. And then I'm facing, 45 years in prison, and the FBI's following me and tap my phones, and they're intercepting my emails, and my friends stopped talking to me, and some of my relatives stopped talking to me. I'll tell you what, my mom was one of 9 children, and only 2 are still alive. One lives in Greece and the other lives in Youngstown, Ohio. And I don't speak to him. And the reason I don't speak to him is because one of my cousins called him when I blew the whistle and said, we have to step up for Johnny. All my cousins call me Johnny. So she says, we have to step up for Johnny. And my uncle said, I told him years ago that he should just keep his big fucking mouth shut. My own uncle said this. He said, what he brought on himself, he brought on himself. And that was it. He walked away from me. And now it's like, well, why doesn't Johnny talk to me? Johnny doesn't talk to you because he knows what you said about him in 2007. And he doesn't like or respect you.
Asshole.
Yeah.
Mr. Out Straight says, I thought your advice on depression you gave on your own show, Deep Focus, was very good and poignant. Maybe share it with the viewers here.
You.
Ted's input would be interesting too.
Somebody asked me, I do Q&As for Deep Focus. Once a week or once a 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. Whenever somebody puts a question in the chat, like we have here, we pull it out and I do a 30, 45 minute session just answering questions. So somebody asked me the other day how I dealt with the depression. And I said, frankly, the easy answer is that my life was saved by 10 milligrams every day of venlafaxine, Effexor, literally saved my life. I also had something called transcranial magnetic therapy, which was incredible. It was brilliant, fantastic. But every once in a while, like everybody, you find yourself falling into depression for one reason or another. Sometimes there's no reason. Sometimes I just wake up and I feel a little bit depressed. Maybe it's a dream that I had that I don't even remember what it was. And so what I said on Deep Focus was, you got to put yourself first. And maybe that means taking a couple of hours and going for a long walk, listen to music, go to a movie, call a friend, something, anything to distract yourself.
Get out of your head.
Just get out of your head. Exactly. And for me, that actually has worked.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been on drugs, on meds. I kind of just, it's never been suggested to me. So therefore it's not like been a choice. I did talk therapy for years. And I was diagnosed with PTSD over the LA Times thing.
Without a doubt.
And
I would be shocked if you told me that you didn't have PTSD from the LA Times.
For sure. And I think that the therapist was really shocked by just how much and she was very experienced. EMDR turned out to be really helpful for me.
I've heard very good things about EMDR.
So I strongly recommend that. I don't suffer from sort of chemical depression at all. I'm not one of those people who I'm a pretty upbeat person. So for me, it's situational. If something really, really fucking bad happens to me or someone I care about, then I can, for me, when I was caregiving for my mother who was dying of Alzheimer's for years, that was rough because I'm an only child. It was just me and her. There were no other relatives. I was, they got to know me at LaGuardia at the same little gate that flew to Dayton. It was like, oh, Mr. Rall, nice to see you again. I'm like, just trudging along.
Yeah. Depression's not been my problem. My problem has been anxiety, but it's paralyzing anxiety. Paralyzing. I went to see this shrink. I only saw her one time because I didn't like her, but, her entire practice is just fucked up former CIA people. So she's cleared, so you can speak freely and all that stuff. She probably rats you out to the agency anyway. But I went to see her one time, and she said that, I find it fascinating that you have no PTSD from the agency You have no PTSD from prison, but you have crippling PTSD from your divorce. And I said, yeah, I could have predicted that, because they teach us in training not to trust anybody. And I allowed myself to trust one person.
Well, and
betrayed.
It's not a great Julia Roberts movie, and I like Julia, but Sleeping with the Enemy is a great name for a movie about a fucked up marriage.
Got that right.
That's literally what you're doing. And it's like, it's really disturbing. It's one thing to be like, the fuckers, whether it's the agency or, the newspaper publisher, but they're outside of your house. This is like, you can't even go into your happy home and be left the fuck alone.
No. And then you get the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee saying that you should be executed, which did nothing for my mood.
That's always, by the way, very bizarre to me when like really high profile people punch down like that. Tom Tolles was the longstanding editorial cartoonist at the Washington Post. At one point, he did a cartoon, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the whole Joint Chiefs of Staff, they drafted a letter calling for poor Tom to be fired from his job.
I hope he framed it.
They didn't like his little cartoon. I'm like, you got big military guys like invade foreign countries all the time, and you're scared of a cartoonist?
When my first book was coming out, my editor said, hey, let's ask George Tenet for a blurb. And I said, George Tenet's not going to send a blurb. He hates me and I hate him. No, let's ask anyway. So they reach out and George Tenet writes back and says, I wouldn't do anything for that asshole. And I said, that's the blurb.
Yeah.
Let's publish that on the back cover. And they were like, no, we can't do that. This isn't a joke. It's a serious book. I'm like, all right.
Humor.
Okay.
You can never really have enough humor. We got to talk about Africa before we wrap up here at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Tanzania. So I did decide to. So there's riots. Once again, we have another fucked up election. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, first female president of Tanzania, just took office with 98% of the vote. And I suppose it's possible for someone to be super popular, but that doesn't appear to be the case there. And the people of Tanzania totally seem to not think that's the case. There's riots going on. Everything's closed down. There's martial law. Over 1,000 protesters have apparently been gunned down in the streets.
Yes.
The word is that bodies are piling up on the streets, and the repression is rampant. Even the Pope has chimed in. So, John, I'm kind of like, okay, so ideologically, I wanted to know sort of who's what here, right? So Samia Suluhu Hassan is from this longstanding ruling party that's been in charge of Tanzania ever since independence, pretty much. And it's easy to say, well, this is obviously a bullshit, election. Has to be.
Right.
That said, I was like, but I always get suspicious when American media outlets say, well, the opposition party, Chadema, has been banned, and they quote them. I was like, well, who is this opposition? And it's really uncomfortable for my side. I hate this as a leftist, but basically the opposition is center-right, and Hassan is a lefty, like a basically Pan-African liberationist, sort of in the Gaddafi mold. So it's the uncomfortable place to be, where the autocrat, I'm more sympathetic ideologically to the autocrat, and the person who's being suppressed is the center right, which I absolutely despise.
Yes.
What the fuck? Anyway,
yes.
What do you make of what's going on in Tanzania?
I think that the Tanzanians wanted to experiment again with authoritarianism, thinking that it's like the 60s or 70s all over again. It's not. And people are taken to the streets. 1,000 dead so far, I think is they've gotten off easy. I think that when the Pope weighs in, it's because things are going to get a lot worse. Excuse me. And I think this is the beginning, Ted, of political upheaval that we're going to see in Tanzania. In the United States, at least in the U.S. government, there's long been this belief that that Tanzania is one of those democratic or pseudo-democratic East African countries that we can rely on, and it's not. It's not. It has these fascist tendencies, just like so many other countries have, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets any better.
Are we going to see some equivalent of an African Spring?
You know what? I hadn't thought of that, but that's absolutely possible. Sure. It's absolutely possible.
With a ripple effect over post-colonial Africa.
And people get to a point where they can't take it anymore. And if you're hungry and you're oppressed, the only place to go is the street.
Because the center of gravity, right? Like in the post-colonial era, was this sort of these, former Black liberation movements that basically took over. Then we went into second and third generation, like the sons and daughters of those, sons and grandchildren of those leaders who were charismatic in the 1960s and 70s. And then the corruption got really out of control. And now it's full blown, right? There's not much left except just the slogans from that period. Yeah, that's right. That is right. Well, guys, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you. Just a reminder, please contribute to Robbie Aid. It is putting it up on the screen, givesendgo.com/West Glacier Gaming. We are here Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Little housekeeping, John and I will be back here Wednesday at 9 a.m. Showtime will be on Thursday, but Thursday, John, you're out.
I'm out.
So friend of the show and my best friend, Scott Stantis, the editorial cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune, will be sitting in for John on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. And John will be back on Friday, rested and ready, I hope. And we're looking forward to all that. Thanks. Please stay tuned for the TMI show with me, Ted Rall, and Manila Chan. That's coming up right after this. And you can just, if you're in the Rumble chat, it'll just steal you and take you way away, and you can never escape. Well, maybe that's not quite true.
Enjoy.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And take care. Now I need to hit our little end stream thing.
Oh, yeah.
No, I found it. Yay. Okay. Bye.